Andy, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. How you, Josh?
Good, man. We are back. We decided to split the last episode into, we're going to be doing two different sections here. Part one was strength for kids ages 6 to 14. And now we're going to get into health tips for ages 6 to 14. So, again, why this podcast topic? We get questions from parents all the time. We're seeing the importance of kids that develop good health habits young come into our facility as adults with a bigger base and foundation of being healthier. So we really want to lay out some principles and a blueprint for people to walk away with. So how's that sound?
That sounds good. And I think you did more on this. I put together a whole bunch of notes for our last episode, which was training kids and getting them ready to be physically healthy. But then you also put together a bunch of notes for other aspects of health, and that's what we're diving into here.
Yeah. And some of these are not the most popular topics, but I think that's why people like listening to
Mhm.
podcasts in many cases. So I want to talk about one being it is fairly popular, but it's overlooked, is that nutrition. And so we're not going to get into the details of how kids should eat and this and that, but I think there's some big concepts that parents really need to spend some time on thinking about. And that's like balancing blood sugar and sugar intake as young kids, like their taste buds, habits, routines, the dopamine release with consuming sugar and processed foods. Like I think that we've get questions a lot from parents, what should my kid eat? And you've always sort of spun it on like this is what they shouldn't eat.
Right. Yeah.
And I've never forgotten that, and I actually use that now as a tip for parents. So the sugar piece is huge, and I know that you believe this too. The Co-Movement Gym podcast is supported by Native Path Supplements and Lombardi Chiropractic. Mention this podcast or click on the links in the episode description for a nice discount on us. The sugar piece is huge. It leads to obviously weight issues, diabetes,
Sure.
there's inflammation, gut issues, we can go on and on. We're not going to spend a lot of time on it, but if you're listening to the podcast for health tips for ages 6 to 14 and you don't care about how much sugar your kid is eating and consuming on a daily basis, you should.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think one of the things to focus on is the big culprit being sugary drinks. Juices are still considered healthy by a lot of parents.
Yeah.
A parent doesn't want to give their third grader a Pepsi or a Mountain Dew or Dr. Pepper. That's soda. Soda is bad. We all know that. But then they don't think twice about giving them a glass of apple juice or orange juice or grape juice. Whatever. And it's all basically the same thing. Those sugary juices that they make for kids, Hawaiian Punch, Sunny D, like that kind of stuff. It's basically soda just without the carbonation. Yeah, juices are one of the biggest things that I see as like the culprit for why young kids are taking in way too much sugar. And then also what you touched on, this is where like their taste buds are developing and stuff. Like as early as possible, get kids eating real whole food, have them eat actual fruit, actual vegetables, potatoes, whatever. Have them develop a taste for that kind of stuff. I know you guys did a great job with that in your house.
Yep.
Kids eat fruit and meat and real food.
Yeah.
Because so many parents, I think, and I understand because lack of time and also money and that kind of thing, convenience, but there's a big reliance these days on processed foods. Pop Tarts are really easy for breakfast because the kid can just rip open the package and eat them, or they take 30 seconds in the toaster. As opposed to making some scrambled eggs or something like that. Um, Juice is really easy, just pour it quick. But it's also really easy to grab an apple or some fruit out of the cupboard or wherever you keep it, the fridge, and have them eat that instead. Yeah, so the juices is a big one, and just exposing them early to healthy foods so that they don't end up being super picky, being that fifth grader who only wants
Yeah.
a white bread
Yeah.
sandwich and their juice box and their cookies, but they won't eat like something that's actually real food.
Yeah. Well, it's hysterical that you added that second part in there because I have on here next. I have exposure to all meats, fruits, veggies, and limited processed foods. I have that on
Yeah,
here.
as many
So,
as possible too. And if they don't like some of them, that's fine. Like I don't like every fruit or every vegetable or whatever, but like you said, exposed to as many as possible
yeah,
because you will find the ones that they like, and their tastes will change over months and years and whatever. But
yeah.
find the ones that they like, and keep going with that.
We have quite a few different friends and family members, cousins that will come over to our house, throughout the weeks. And we cook pretty good as a family.
Mhm.
We lots of like
You guys
venison
cook
and
great.
steak and eggs and like
Yeah,
omelets, and we eat pretty good.
stuff from your
So we
garden.
smoke
Yep.
food, and like I'm amazed at the number of kids that sort of stare at their plate when they've
Mhm,
got like a $20 meal sitting in front of them that smells amazing, and
mhm.
they just sort of pick at it.
Yep, yep.
And I'm thinking like you've obviously adapted at home to
Mhm.
eating other quality foods, and I get it. Like,
Chicken
and we
nuggets, mac and
always
cheese. Yep.
yeah, yeah. So we always make, options for the kids, whatever. So they are fed, but like I'm amazed at the basic foods. How many kids don't like you offer them an apple and they
Mhm,
don't they want the bag of chips.
mhm.
You've got a grass-fed burger with sauce and sweet potato fries on their plate and they eat 10% of it. And then they
But
later
then
on
I
they
tell
want
you they're hungry 20 minutes later,
that's what
and they're
happens.
pointing to the cupboard that has the chips in it or the
That's
cookies.
what happens. That's what
Yeah.
happens. And so that's been an eye opener just being a parent and seeing, different kids in and out of the house.
Yeah, and I
Yeah,
think starting really young too, like, we're talking baby age and, toddler and
yeah.
stuff, that's when you really wanna be developing their taste for real food.
Yeah, and that's the process we've been going through, right, in our side, for 18 months, and just the exposure, and now, she is consuming, Greek yogurt, hamburger, the sweet potatoes, like, eats like a monster, all great food,
Mhm.
and it's cool.
Well, it's funny if you looked at, like, you know, k some parents might listen to this and say, like, kids just don't like that kind of stuff, like, all they want is, like, cereal or, cookies or
Yeah,
whatever. Um, like, if you look at any hunter-gatherer sort of tribe or whatever, they don't have that kind of stuff. All they have is
no,
the game that they killed and whatever they
yeah,
gathered. And these societies still exist. There's plenty of people who live this way, and those kids eat just fine. They're
yeah.
very happy to get their, like, cut of antelope meat, if they're in the Maasai tribe or whatever.
It's so true.
Kids are gonna like food. We all need food, and we all like to eat when we're hungry. Like, try to get them started on the right stuff.
And I am amazed at how much they duplicate what you eat as a parent.
Mhm,
Like Asher's got a ton of the same eating habits as I do, as snacks and core food staples.
hmm,
And our little one is the same exact patterns. It's really hysterical. Like she had some hamburger this morning. She just wanted hamburger, and she had some yogurt. It's like,
one.
what a breakfast. And you're making a little beast out of those kids. And
Yep,
but I will say, and this is from an empathetic side and something we struggle with as a family, is you don't have control over your kid all the time.
right,
and
yep.
and so they go to friends' houses, relatives is a big one. And so a lot of that is poor food choices.
Yep, yep,
And
yep.
to ask an 11-year-old to limit their sugar
Oh, no,
intake
no
is
chance.
like a big middle finger to you.
Yeah.
And so there is a huge balance. I wish that more people were on board with this. And they are. Obviously,
Mhm.
we're, trying to spread the word as much as
Well,
possible.
that's
But
why we're talking about this right now is
yeah.
because there are a ton of parents, are concerned about this and
Mhm.
want their kids to be healthier. Pretty much all parents do for the most part.
Yeah.
So just the more that it's talked about and the more little changes are made from household to household, the less concern there is about your kid, when they're not at your house,
Yeah, yeah.
so it's a long process, and they're obviously going to be exposed to all sorts of stuff, and they're going to eat a ton of junk. Every kid does. We did when we were kids.
Yeah.
We're just trying to tip the scales a little more in the right direction all the
Yeah.
time.
And two tips with this particular section I'll give people is if they use time as an excuse for cooking,
Mhm.
whole normal foods, um, I don't buy that. I'm as busy or busier than most people. You are extremely busy with everything from work to training to, family life. Like, you find time. Like, I set the alarm clock for 20 minutes earlier. Big deal. Instead of being on your phone for that extra 30 minutes, like cook some food and put it in a Pyrex dish for the next day. Like,
Yeah.
I don't buy the time thing anymore. I used to a little bit. But
Mhm.
yeah, now I'm like the busiest I've ever been in my whole life, but we're like sort of the most organized because you got to care
Yep.
and you got to sacrifice a lot of other shit to
Mhm.
care. And so, like, that's sort of a hard pill, and it's hard for me. Like, I would rather be doing a lot of other things a lot of times.
Yeah,
But it's
absolutely.
just not the way that it is. And that's okay.
Yeah,
The
like
second,
you said, it's just getting clear on what you care about, and then prioritizing that. You
yeah.
care about the health of yourself and your family and your kids, and you make time to make a meal that's healthy instead of one that might take 15 minutes less because you ripped open a package.
Yeah, exactly. And the other tip there is don't buy school lunch.
Mhm.
From public school to colleges, I have not seen good options. There are some at colleges, especially some of your better schools have some decent choices, but public school, um, garbage.
Oh,
I know how that process works. They put bids out to multiple shitty food companies, then they go with the lowest bid, and they check the boxes that the government wants you to for vegetables and fruit and whatever, which are on a 10 scale a 0.
yeah.
So the food quality, and I'm not blaming the food workers at school
No,
or board members or none of this,
not
is
at all.
way above them. um just don't feed your kids school food. I've
Yeah.
seen the ingredients lists on this stuff and the cans. um it's not good. Give
Yeah,
them
it's so
some basic
unfortunate that we're in
food.
that situation because you've seen like those documentaries about the rare school that takes an initiative to make like all home cooked meal, like fresh vegetables and things like that, and how the behavior improves on
Yeah,
with all the students and how all the grades go up and stuff. And it'd be so great if there could be a national initiative to kind of overhaul the food that's given to kids in schools. Maybe there will be someday. It'll probably be a really slow process, but for now, the best thing you can do is take control of it yourself by
yeah.
sending them with a healthy meal.
Yeah, I don't think any of us should rely on the change. I think we should be the change. And I can tell you that the bigger governing bodies don't care. And that's it's not negative. It's look at history, right?
Is what it is.
um it's not going to change. And so private institutes definitely
Mhm.
can. Obviously your co-ops can, parents can. So yeah, that's just something I am somewhat passionate about, and I wanted to put that out there. All right, number
On,
two
on the
for
topic of nutrition, I'll say if you do happen to know a little bit about nutrition yourself, tell it to your kids. Like so many people, I'm talking adults now, don't know what a carbohydrate, a fat, or a protein is. Like
true.
it can be as simple as when you're sitting with your kid at dinner, point out the protein that they're eating. Oh, what's our protein today? It's chicken. There's your chicken, there's your protein. What does that do? That builds strong muscles. Good. We're going to eat our chicken. Oh, where's your vegetables? Where's your
Mhm.
carbohydrate? What's that? That's for energy. Where's your fat? Like no more, no deeper than that, but just like it'd be nice if kids had a little more understanding of like what's on their plate in terms of like just what's a fat, what's a protein, like
Sure,
what's good for you, what's not.
sure,
I'd like to see a
sure.
little more of that.
At like age 7 or 8, I started to introduce those concepts to Asher.
Yeah,
And now he can rattle off, he's no nutrition genius, but
right.
like he definitely knows the good choices.
Yep.
He knows the bad choices. He knows proteins, he knows fats, he knows carbs. Like he does know the difference. He knows fruits and vegetables, and he knows the kinds of meats he's eating.
Mhm.
And it's not, we by no means spend hardly any time on this, but
Right.
we introduce the
'Cause
concepts
that
and
would
we
be
repeat
boring.
the
You're not trying to give
concepts.
them a physiology lesson, like,
No,
just
no,
extreme basics, but so many people in the adult world don't know the extreme basics that it's
yeah,
like, give a little bit to that, to your kids when they're young.
for sure, for sure. Okay, great. So number two, no social media until ages 16 to 18.
Yeah. Yeah.
That I, I'm not an expert here. I've read enough on it to be slightly dangerous, but like the anxious generation book, there's a lot of research now, especially in girls that are young teenagers in social media, boys on self-esteem and violence. Um, Again, massive, massive topic we're going to spend 2 to 5 minutes on. But I've seen the difference now with family members and clients in the community. There are kids that don't have social media till
Mhm.
16 to 18 and where they are versus the kids that are on TikTok at 9.
And we've talked about this, like, because I've noticed it in myself. So one of the things you mentioned on the last episode, but we're lucky in that we are like the last generation that we went through our childhood up to the age of, like, 16, 18, like where our brains are really developing without social media. Yeah, we had TV like with three channels, whatever. I watched Saturday morning cartoons, but like we didn't have the social media algorithms and stuff just hacking our mind.
Yep.
And now we do. We've spent the last 20 years of our life with all that stuff. And I've noticed the negative effects that it's had on me, especially in the last 10 years, which
Me
has
too.
made me so grateful for the fact that I didn't grow up with it.
Me too.
I feel so bad for the kids these days that are, seeing they're on YouTube and they're on TikTok or whatever when they're in elementary school with a tablet, and you can just see the control that this device, these algorithms have over their brain,
Yep.
and the outcome is not good. You mentioned the Anxious Generation book by Jonathan Haidt. Great book that should probably be required reading for a lot of people these days, just because this is such an important topic.
Mhm.
Thankfully, the awareness is finally rising that all the social media stuff and screen time is bad for kids, but we went through a good decade or two where we didn't really realize
Yeah.
that, and kids are really suffering because of it. So yeah, I love the. I was going to ask you. You've got Asher is in that fifth grade age now.
Six. He's going into
Six, yeah,
seventh.
and a lot of his friends probably have tablets and maybe even phones and things like
No,
that. Social media, no.
most of them have fully functioning iPhones.
Yeah, so you're talking about like trying to keep kids off of social media until they reach like maybe 16 or something like that. Like, how hard is that to do? You're doing it with Asher, but how challenging is that?
With the phone thing, it's just not a conversation.
Yeah, and
Like
you're not giving
we
him
don't
one. Yeah, but what
yeah, we
about with
don't
his friends
debate
and
with.
stuff?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, well, yeah. The tablets, God, they're all at school. They get assigned all that stuff. They get free time. What do you want to do? Go on your tablet. Yeah, we're losing that bad all at school for sure, unfortunately. But at home, no. Like with video games, so he likes Fortnite. We have a parental limit. It's 1 hour any session. So a day, but that's only if all these metrics are done. Your bed is made. He has to do all the homework for the next day. He has to make sure his work is prepped for the next day in his backpack, and then he has to do 20 minutes of reading every day to
Mhm.
play his 1 hour. And 50% of the time he doesn't want to play. Like tonight, today is going to be 85 and sunny. Like there's a high chance today he's going to want to go fishing when he gets home or go swimming somewhere. He's not
Yep.
going to want to sit on Fortnite. So like there's no debating that. And so yeah, most of his friends now have iPhones with full access to the internet. And then I would say that a half to three quarters of them have those accounts, the TikTok, Snapchat, and I already know and hear the drama of what's going on. And this is sixth grade.
Yeah.
And it's
So
really sickening. And so for parents listening, I hear this excuse of like, they need the phone because what if,
yeah,
right? The big quotes. Well, let me tell you this, your kid's never been safer at any time in history. That's statistically proven. And then the other thing, get them a flip phone from
yeah,
Walmart for
mhm,
$10 and put minutes on it. And so they can text you and they can call you with your big apocalyptic what if. And life goes on. Like that's that. How many kids now do you see walking around with a flip phone? No one.
no,
No.
yeah,
And that is they can do what they want, but the research is out, and there's actually like Brett Weinstein, like you said, Jonathan Haidt, Andrew Huberman. It's scary. It's
yeah,
scary what's happening to their minds, the development with the need for the dopamine, and uh you can get into a lot of holes with porn and treating women, and there's a lot of things there. So i would
yeah,
i would recommend ages 16 to 18, and then you might even find at that age, and I've seen this with a few relatives that are excelling young kids. They don't have any interest. Once they get to that age, they've got so many other things going on,
mhm.
with sports and college and goals, that they don't care to be on Instagram at all.
Yeah. One of the things I wanted to say was, the other thing, like, your kid has to learn from somewhere when they're young and they're developing, what beliefs they have about the world and whatever and what they know. um, you can teach them or you can let social media teach them,
Yeah.
and social media goes, as soon as they start, that algorithm starts learning their interests or whatever, taking them down all these rabbit holes, they can end up with a lot of strange beliefs and strange things that they think about the world, if you're letting social media and videos on YouTube be who teaches your kids about the world instead of you. So
Yes.
I would definitely, that's one thing to consider every time you let them be on a device. But one of the things I want to point out was, you we were just talking about Asher there. Set the parental rules.
Yep.
You are the one deciding. There's not going to be a phone. It's not even a conversation, like you said. A lot of parents worry about that because they think that their kid is going to be missing out or be unhappy because all their other friends have these devices and whatever, and
Mhm.
they don't. So they're going to be the odd one out. Asher is one of the most well-adjusted, happy kids
Yeah.
in the world. So you've
Yes.
set these hard rules. He doesn't have a phone, and he's
Yep.
super limited on his video game time, all this kind of stuff. And yet I see him all the time. He's playing, he's
Yep.
happy, he's got friends. Like,
Yep.
you're not going to harm your kid in some way by not allowing them to be as engaged with screens as some of their peers might be.
Yeah,
You're
if
only
you
going to
think your kid's missing out on a high quality of life because they don't have a screen, then you are lacking serious hobbies.
right.
Like
Yes.
you don't live a remotely stimulating life. And maybe I'm offending someone there, but it's true. Like Asher and I have a list of things constantly that we can go to that are fun, and we just go do things.
Yep.
And like it's okay to have downtime too, like he still plays with toys um when it's quiet or we're waiting for dinner,
Mhm.
and so yeah, I don't buy that missing out. And this is the other thing, I'll spin that to say, what are they missing out on? Like, are
Right.
all
Yeah.
the other kids addicted to the drama and the brain warping crap on TikTok? You're missing out on that. You're not
Right.
missing out on anything. And if those friends think you're not cool because you don't have it, I'm going to go farther and say maybe they're not good friends, you know? So I don't know. And we've been very open with our kid about all of this that we're actually talking about. He would understand this whole conversation. And as he gets older, he can make more choices on his own, and that's
Yep.
sort of
But at
like,
least then his brain is developed and he'll make better choice or be more capable of making choices himself,
yeah. And
thinking through
it's
things
nice, like
himself.
since the weather's gotten nicer, his interest in Fortnite has gone way down. Like he plays here and there, whatever. We've had some rainy spells, but again, you have the 1 hour time limit. Um, like it's just there's other things to going on. So yeah, the social media thing, that's a very big interest of mine. And
One of the
how
best
that's
tips for
affecting.
parents here is talk to each other about it, because if you talk to the other parents, you'll probably find that they also would like to limit their kids' screen time.
Sure.
They also don't want. I mean, heck, most parents these days are younger than I am, and I see what stuff is doing to me.
Me too.
Some of those parents
Sure.
grew up with it, and they've even been more affected. Like
Yep.
they're starting to see that they don't want this for their kids. Talk to the other parents and say, hey, let's all like agree to limit our kids doing this and that. Let's set up times for them to meet at the park. Whatever. Like other parents can totally be your allies in this, because we all know it's a problem.
Absolutely. Are you ready to move easily and independently without pain or stiffness holding you back? Do you want to look in the mirror and see a hydrated glow instead of more fine lines and wrinkles? Discover Native Path Collagen, made with only type 1 and 3 collagen fibers, the two most important types that make up 90% of the collagen in your body, found in your cartilage, bones, skin, hair, nails, and gut. Type 1 and 3 fibers provide maximum benefits without the need for unnecessary fillers. Native Path Collagen is a single ingredient formula with no fillers, additives, or artificial sweeteners. Plus, it's third party tested for heavy metals, ensuring purity and safety. Completely flavorless. Native Path Collagen can be added to anything: coffee, smoothies, soups, you name it. Its peptide formula makes it more bioavailable, meaning it's absorbed more easily and mixes perfectly without clumping. And the best part? Native Path offers amazing bundle deals. With this special link, you can get 3 or 6 packs at a fraction of the price of other brands. With over 4 million jars sold, 1 million happy customers, 8,000 5-star reviews, and a 360-day no-risk guarantee, Native Path is a trusted choice. Plus, they offer an 800 number for any questions about usage, recipes, or ingredients, and you will speak to a real person ready to help. Visit getnativepath.com/co-movement and start your transformation today. That's getnativepath.com/co-movement. All right, number three, we don't got to spend a ton of time on this, but like I believe that the lights should be out for these kids age 6 to 14 between 8 and 9 at night. And there's a process to that. Like there's the pre-routine and the expectation, right? So Asher knows the expectation is you're in bed at 8:30. Like,
Mhm,
so it's not a surprise at 8:25.
mhm.
There's an expectation. And so at 7:30, 7:45, 8 o'clock, like we're just sort of wrapping our head around like whatever, bed's coming up, you got to brush your teeth. Do you want a snack? Like, is your homework all organized? Like there's a conversation around that. And then, yeah, they're in bed. I have just some tips here. No TV in the bedroom, like none. No phones. If your kid uses the excuse that they need their phone to fall asleep, it's even more reason to take
That's
the
a
phone.
problem. Yeah.
When we have relatives stay here, kids, and friends of Asher's, we don't let their phones in the room. We
Great.
take them. We
Yep.
we put them in the kitchen, and so no phones. And you're laughing at this, but if they're not tired enough to fall asleep between 8 and 9 at night, they didn't play hard enough.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Like it, honestly, like if it's like you hear this with kids, I've heard this so much. Like it's like 11:30, and they're like, I just can't fall asleep. It's like,
Mhm.
well, you didn't do shit all day long.
Yeah.
Like come hang out with us, and you will fall asleep. Asher doesn't even say a sentence sometimes. Like and he's just gone. Like
Mhm.
he's tired. He's done a lot in most days. Not all days, but so yeah, 8 to 9 o'clock, no TV, no phones, a cool room, maybe some shades, like make it like a cave. I think that's so important. The sleep now with kids and the phone and the beeps and the vibrations and the TVs. And I could never sleep. You know me,
Oh,
I'm a sleep Nazi and I'm sensitive to sleep,
yep.
but I've got my sleep dialed so I sleep good. But if
Uh-huh.
I'm put into like a shitty sleep situation, can't sleep, you know.
Yep.
But like I probably shouldn't be able to sleep because we're not designed to sleep in that, you know?
Oh god, no. Yeah. Yeah, and I have a few, high school kids that I train, and they tell me that they're on their phones until 2 or 3 in the
Yeah,
morning. They come
same
in
here.
complaining about how exhausted they are and how they didn't
Yep.
get enough sleep. And like, "You're trying to go to bed earlier," but they're on their phone until 2 or 3 in the morning
Yeah.
in their bed for a
Yeah.
couple hours scrolling TikTok or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, such an important rule to start with, just like you said, that bedtime, no electronics in the room, no screen, no TV on, so
Yep.
they get used to that from when they're born until they're leaving the house when they're 18 or whatever. Um, so hopefully they don't end up in the situation that I see so often with these high school kids.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm. Yeah.
that's really huge. I knew you were going to touch on that. Sleep is just so important for overall health, and especially with young kids. They do so much and they learn so much all day long. They're so active, and sleep is when all of that brain activity and stuff gets compiled and they
Yep.
learn the lessons for the day, and whatever they learned in school is cemented so they remember it the next day.
Yep.
Yeah, you can't mess with sleep for a young
And
kid.
it is a double-edged sword. So, like, if the kid's up till 2 doom scrolling, they're getting all that brain waste shit in their
Hmm.
mind, and they're not sleeping.
So the next day they're
And
exhausted. Now they're not going to do as well in school and stuff. Yep.
because most physical, not mental, but most physical repairs from 10 to 2 at night,
Mhm.
we've talked about that before, um, now they don't wanna do nothing the next day
Yeah.
because 'cause they're
Yeah.
tired, you know?
Yep.
And so it's just a spiral, and, yeah, I don't know. It's a big topic, but it's a basic solution,
Well,
so
I
we're gonna
love your nighttime routine as an adult because you guys have all the dimmer switches in your house and
yeah,
stuff, and you
yeah,
start turning down the lights at 7, turn 'em down a little more at 8. Like the
yeah,
house gets
yep.
quieter and darker,
We do that
screens start to go off,
night,
like,
every night.
and it helps to fall asleep so much better when you do that instead of just having everything going, everything lit up right until bedtime,
Yeah.
and then have that bedtime be random every night. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we like to have other than, weekends or a treat, TV's off by 8, 8:15, dimmer switches. When we built the house, I paid more, but I wanted dimmers in every room,
Mhm.
which is awesome. I highly
It's
recommend
really
that.
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great idea. And yeah, you fall asleep easier. So, all right, number 4, we've sort of hinted on this with the sport thing a little bit, but I think we need to be scheduling. This is going to be like an oxymoron, but like scheduling free time.
Yeah.
Like we need more no agenda type items in
Mhm.
our weekly to-do list. We're overbooked
Yep.
as adults. The kids especially are overbooked, and it's because the adults are.
Yep.
I'm not blaming it on individuals per se. It's a society thing. It's a
Mhm.
hustle culture. It's a more, more, more. But the more that I'm reading and researching on like successful people, healthy families, they guard their time like crazy,
Mhm.
and they say no all the time, and they're using lots of quiet reflective time to recharge and re-engage. You know what I'm saying? It's a
Yeah. Well,
real big, big, big thing. And I'm 42, so it's taken me a long time. And I sprint hard, but now I'm trying to rest hard, like more
mhm.
cyclical. But
Yeah, you and I have talked about this so much because it's a big frustration for both of us is having an overbooked life and feeling
yeah,
like every day of the week and every hour of the day is like planned with you. You're doing this, then you're doing this, then you're doing this, then you're doing this. There's like a never ending list of places to go and things to do. That downtime is so important. It's something I've known for myself for a long time. Maybe it's because I'm more of an introvert. I don't know, but I need quiet time to recharge, and it's just really good for you. It's some time to reflect. It's okay to like not be doing something for a couple hours. It's really good for
yes,
you.
yes, or a day.
Or need a day,
Um,
yeah.
I think that we're now scared to not be stimulated and have stuff to do. Like
Yep.
time time by ourselves is more time in our thoughts, and our
Mhm,
thoughts are mostly negative and anxiety provoking.
mhm.
And so I think that there's a skill set to being okay with not being busy. And I'm
Definitely there
speaking
is,
for
yeah.
myself.
And this has been one of the downsides of the social media stuff is,
Yeah.
it's shortened our attention spans, it's made us always feel like we need to be stimulated, like,
Yeah.
people are not good at being bored anymore. They're not good
No.
at, like, just sitting in a quiet room, like, instantly reach for the phone,
Yep.
or whatever, turn something on, like, they need noise coming in, something to watch, something to stimulate their brain.
Mhm.
Being alone and being reflective and just being able to think, about things, or rest, that's becoming a lost skill, and I think it's really, really important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Naval Ravkant, who I've talked to to you quite a bit, he's had a pretty good impact on my life in the last few months. He there's one thing he says many, but one I really think about a lot is he says if you want to determine the quality of your life, spend 60 minutes by yourself with no stimulation.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah, and
go
see how well
sit
you do with that. See if
yeah,
you can still be happy or satisfied or whatever, or if you're just going crazy and
yeah.
you can't
Or
stand it.
what are you thinking, right?
Yeah.
And I've done this many, many times now. I did 45 minutes yesterday. I'm doing it as much as I can, and it is mind blowing how accurate that statement is. And he challenges people to 1 hour a day of sitting there. Essentially, it's not, he can call it meditating, but meditating a lot of times has a point to it, like focus on breathing or this or that. This is literally just sitting there with your thoughts. He recommends 1 hour a day for 60 straight days, and he said by the end of that, you will reorient your brain and your mind at a level that is not comprehensible. I haven't done that. It's daunting. I've been doing a lot more of it though. But like yesterday, I did the sauna session. You know,
Yeah.
you I'm doing the three. I'm doing one today and one tomorrow for that race. And the first 20 minutes I did some note taking. And then the last 20-25 minutes I did nothing.
Mhm.
I sat there, I was soaked, like profusely dripping, and I had the towel on my lap, and I just watched the drips hit the towel for
Mhm.
20 to 25 minutes.
Yeah, I did the
And
same. I did a 90-minute sauna session, a few of them a couple weeks ago. I told you about, and we don't always get good cell phone reception in the sauna room.
yeah,
And I'd
yeah,
gone in thinking I'm going to listen to this podcast about whatever. I had something that I wanted to listen to, and I started in the sauna, and my podcast went for like maybe 5 minutes, and then it just stopped because of lack of service.
yes,
And I was like, "Oh, that's a bummer. Should I get out and like try to reconnect service?" I'm like, "Yeah, the heck with it." And I
yep,
just spent 85 minutes in the sauna, just alone with my thoughts, watching the drips, like you said,
yes,
and I loved it. It was great. I got
yeah.
out. I felt incredible. I was glad that I lost service.
So true. I think there's such a healing benefit to that. Um, and I think that's a struggle
Yeah.
for many people. So all right. So yeah, basically clearing out some schedule for your kids, and by default you. I think that's huge. Lastly, um, is monitoring their friends and who their peer group is.
Hmm. Hmm.
I think that's very important. I believe that you are who you hang out with, right? So you are the average of the five people you spend time with. Your kid has uh less than ideal friends from a behavioral standpoint.
Hmm. Yeah,
That's what they're going
it's
to
going
end
to
up
influence
being.
them.
Seems like
Yeah,
a simple
absolutely.
concept, but I think it's something that we all need to keep tabs on, right? Habits change, access to things change, parents change, divorces happen, living environments change. And so, like, I'm very interested to see who Asher wants to spend time with. They don't need to be perfect kids or like high achiever, right? Like, I'm talking from a human perspective.
Yep,
And
yep,
then
yep.
also their parents, like, what are they exposed to and seeing, right?
Mhm.
When they're not with us. So the friend piece and the peer group piece, yeah, and that can be controlled.
A lot of the common theme here is being involved as much as possible in your kid's life and talking to them. So you said keeping tabs on their friends. Like, talk to your kid about, like, who'd you hang out with today? What'd you guys do?
Yeah.
Um, have them tell you about their friends. Just like with all the stuff we've talked about, like in the fitness episode, if you're out shoveling, have them come out and shovel with you. Like, all this stuff is, you need to set the example and be involved with your kid to know what their life is like and to help direct it when it needs directing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, you know, um, yeah, I do. I think in that home life for the kid too plays into it. What are the parents' conversations about? Like, what are the expectations? Like, I think there's a lot there. You could be doing a lot of things right at home, but then a few times a week, your kids doing overnights and getting exposed to all of this. And I don't, again, I'm not a helicopter parent by any means. Maybe it's sort of sounding like I am, but I am with this. I don't want I don't think like I don't think you should be exposed to a litany of kids that are on the wrong track. Let that play out.
Yep.
And so yeah, I think that's huge. And so I have written here some ideas. Um, you know, we hear a lot of times from parents saying like, we don't know what to do with our kid as far as like activities, so or
Mhm.
groups, events. So I listed out some things here. The 4-H I think is great. There's a 4-H club all over the country for different groups. There's Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts. There's youth hunting clubs through the fish and game clubs. Most towns have fish and game clubs. They do archery leagues. There's library clubs. There's events at libraries. You could join a gym with sporting teams we've talked about, church communities. Like our church does a youth night twice a month where they do dodgeball and basketball.
Yep.
And there's like 90 local kids that show up. It's
That's awesome.
amazing. And it's a great environment. And you don't even need to be a member of the church. Like your parent, a lot of these kids, their parents don't even go to church. So the kids just show up. And
Huh.
so there is a lot to do. There's a lot of homeschool groups now. There's co-ops. So if you're looking for positive environments and friends and parent relationships for your kid to be around, there are a lot of choices.
Yep.
But you got to be able to filter that out.
Yeah, and a lot of the stuff we're talking about here is pretty obvious. Like, a lot of parents could have kind of come up with a lot of these tips themselves if they sat and thought about it. I think it's just important, if this episode does anything, maybe the best thing is just that it is just a reminder. Like, we all need these reminders, and to hear this kind of stuff a little more often to keep us on the right track, because it's so easy to fall into not paying enough attention or having bad habits that your kids see or whatever. I think one of the biggest benefits of this is just parents are listening, and hopefully they're like, yeah, oh yeah, I do want to do more of that stuff. And it just gives them motivation to move more in the right direction,
Hmm.
going forward.
Yeah, for sure. Anything else we want to dive into, or we hit
Uh,
the big five on my end and you
Yeah, no, I
gave your
think I
input?
think those are really are the big five. I mean, talked about nutrition, talked about sleep, we talked about social media and all that kind of stuff, and the friend groups like that. That really is the big stuff right there. And I wanted to hopefully keep these episodes a little more general, just hit the heavy stuff, the big concepts. So I
Yeah.
think you killed it.
Yeah, and I think just as a takeaway, if you're seeing a pattern or concern in your kid with a physical, issue or deficit or health, reflect on your patterns
Uh-huh.
as a parent,
Yep.
and that's I'm basically asking people to sort of step up to the plate here at some level. So if your kid has a weight issue, What do the family dinners look like?
Yeah, yeah,
How's your weight issue?
yeah. For kids become their parents
Yeah.
in a lot of ways, right?
Yeah. And kids not motivated to be active. We hear this like, oh, your kid doesn't want to get off the couch. How's your activity levels?
Yeah,
You know?
yeah,
And so, and I do this with myself because I trust me, like we all hit slumps.
mhm,
We have our big ups and downs, lack of motivation. And so like I'm speaking to people listening, but also to myself, so I'm having to reflect also, if
mhm.
I'm seeing things. So I think it's a good drill holding that mirror up and playing off that. So
Yeah, yep. Well, yeah, being a parent is quite a learning process, I'm sure, and you figure out a bunch of stuff about yourself that you need to work on. And if you want to be a good parent, then you do work on those things because you realize how much it influences your kids.
yeah, awesome. All right. Well, hopefully people found this useful and insightful, and we'll see you on the next one. Andy, thank you.
Sounds good. Yeah, thanks, Josh.
If you enjoyed this episode, please consider supporting our sponsors, Native Path Supplements and Lombardi Chiropractic. Your support helps us to bring you 2 new episodes each month. See the show notes for more details and a nice discount from our sponsors. Thank you, and see you next time on the Co Movement Gym podcast.